Pleasant surprise coming in here this week. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We had a shortened week this past week. Go Bears, go Bengals. I don't care about the rest of the teams. But overall, just really a nice short week in here, up around 20 points. This is kind of surprising. I know we always talk about shortened weeks. We're always going to have that little bit of positive drift and more or less kind of flat and kind of fading towards the end, but really just a nice pop in here, a good hold on Friday on that shortened session. The interesting thing to me would be to note how AMD and Nvidia and Amazon and Apple all reacted with the market. So kind of keep those in mind as you're watching this overall market, because you kind of the overall market stayed more or less kind of flat on Friday, where Apple had that big pullback, Amazon had the pullback, and then they both kind of ran up at the end, and Nvidia just kind of faded out and actually tanked. So that is something to kind of keep in mind. So you're watching your chips, you're watching your big boys in tech here, and you're kind of looking at the whole S&P 500 and seeing how all those are I guess, correlating with one another. So where does that kind of put us here on this weekly chart for SPY? So the question is, if we do get a pop in Nvidia next week, is the market going to go with it? Or if the market tanks, is Nvidia going to stay flat? Where's everybody kind of running to, right? So, and also, I guess I have to kind of put this in here too. Healthcare. Healthcare is a big one because United Health, we had Eli Lilly, things like that. Everybody's kind of running towards them, right? That run up to that 1100 in Eli Lilly this past week, really the run up to 1,000 over the past month or so, was huge for us. But you have to kind of keep that in mind, that run to around 330 in United Health. Is everybody kind of rolling out of tech into more stable companies? Is everybody kind of focusing on healthcare here as we're entering into winter? And then are we going to roll out? So that is kind of the question. So I know that's kind of jumbled up, a jumbled mess, but more or less, let me break it down again. Look at the correlation between the basically tech in your chips. All right. Look at that between the S&P 500. And also keep in mind, watch healthcare and things like that, to see where everybody is kind of rolling into, rolling out of, and then find the correlation between NVIDIA and those healthcares and the S&P 500. That sounds stupid because none of them should really correlate with one another, but watch how they act. If they all go together, that is a healthy market. When something's wrong, then you notice how they all start acting funny. So what is up? Is the market going to pull back? Are we going to get a big run up in chips again? So you're trying to find where the divergence is in between them. Where is the bubble in each of them? That is kind of how you look at the overall markets. That is kind of what we are looking at here, when we're just talking about the markets in general. How is everything reacting? Because these all carry a lot of weight, because these are huge companies. I mean, Nvidia is the largest company in the world, right? So that what Nvidia does should always have something to do with how we're trading, or at least we have to keep that in our mind on the back burner. How is Nvidia doing? How is Apple doing? How is Amazon, Microsoft doing? What are they doing? And then what is the overall market doing? Things like that. Anyway, long story short, let's look back at the spiders in here. 683 is where we ended up around $20 on the week. That's a good week for us in here. What are we looking forward to in here? Well, the 689.70 is going to be a major player for us in here in the next few weeks, because that is our all-time highs. We obviously want to breach that and work our way up to the 690s, and then obviously that 700 range. But 685 is going to be a place for us where we might get a little pullback. So if we get a gap up going into Monday's trading session, we're up around 685, look for a little bit of a pullback first, and then we can work our way up into that next leg. Anything above 689, obviously, we're just looking at nice whole numbers, working our way up to that 700. On the downside, 672 is going to be a place for us that we should be having a nice support. So if we bounce off that 685, look for a pullback in here right around that 672, 673 area. If that doesn't hold, then we're going to be trickling down here. This 9-day EMA sitting at 668. And then below there, you're looking at that 652 range again. And that's a place that we literally just bounced off a couple of weeks ago, where we had that nice sharp V this past week. So that could be a place where, hey, you know what? We ran up too fast, too quick, too high. Let's kind of reset here. Let's bounce off that 685, pull back to that 673, and then start working our way higher, or tank it again down to 652. Let's consolidate in between that 652 and the 672 range. That is kind of overall what we're looking at in here, but basically key levels in here all around for SPY, and we should be touching at least a couple of them here in the next few weeks or so. On Monday's trading session, right around a $3 expected move. So volatility is down, right? Your VIX was up at 24 about a week and a half ago, back down below 20 in here, back down below 18, 16. So we just mentioned what 2 weeks ago when we were doing videos that, hey, we have a SPY in here that the next day is going to be trading in a tolerance of right around plus or minus $6. Now we're looking at right around plus or minus $3. So that's how much volatility has contracted. So when we do get a volatility expansion, watch out because it should be pretty sharp and pretty quick. So $3 expected move by Monday, 4 to 4.5 by Tuesday, Wednesday, right around a $6 expected move being priced in by your overall market. So again, long story short, what is all of this have to do with anything, right? Well, because it's the overall markets, we're looking for a Santa Claus rally. Obviously, shortened week. We were going to have that green week. We knew that. Didn't know how much. Is this too much too quick? What is Nvidia doing? Why is that correlating differently than the overall markets? What's tech doing? Why is healthcare all of a sudden a big deal now? Why is this so stable? Why is everybody rolling into that? That is kind of the overall questions we're looking at when we're looking at the markets and how we're trading. So let's find the divergences in between each. Let's find that volatility. Let's take advantage of it and then play that accordingly. So let's see what we're looking at as we open up this next week, this new month overall in SPY. We're watching that 689, 685, 672, and 668 ranges. All right, guys, if you like this video, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. We also have a Discord service if you're interested, and you can find all of our socials in the description below.